Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. If we can all settle down, please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Malus Msomi. I am from the Electoral Commission here in the Western Cape. I'll be directing the proceedings for today. Mine is easy. It's just to say, yes, stand up, sit down, let's laugh, let's dance. We'll be doing all those today. So yeah, thank you very much, everyone, for being here. Good morning, Commissioner, the PO, colleagues that are here, representatives from the disability sector, that are here, the organizations that we work with. I'm hoping you've invited more organizations that we can always add to our database so that there are more networks that we work with. Stakeholders that are here, I know some of the I think GCIS and the Human Rights Commission is here. Thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen. Now, on behalf of the IEC Western Cape, it is truly an honor to welcome you to this important engagement. Now, today for us as the Electoral Commission, it's not just a day on the calendar that we've ticked off to say this or something like that, but it is a platform for us so that we can be able to listen. That is why the Provincial Electoral Officer, Mr. Hendricks, wanted to have this engagement so that we partner with the disability sector and we share commitments as well with the sector so that as we move forward, we are able to make sure that whatever we are doing as the Electoral Commission is inclusive, because participation for us is very important. So if we say we value participation and exclude certain groups, it will merely be a lip service for us. So your presence here affirms that we are walking this journey together. Thank you again for making time to engage with us. Thank you for being here. Now, in front of you, there is the program that we are going to follow. We haven't changed much from that program. But maybe before I proceed, I would like to also introduce Uli Zegama Dlolo. They are going to be my partners there. They are going to be doing the interpreting. Liz Zegama and Unati Kave. Show of hand. Thank you very much. Welcome and thank you for being here and partnering with us in this engagement. Now, it is now my privilege, ladies and gentlemen, to invite the Deputy Chairperson of the Electoral Commission, Commissioner Janet Love, to address us. Commissioner Love has consistently championed inclusive participation and electoral integrity. We are grateful for her leadership and the Commission's commitment to accessibility and equality. Commissioner, the floor is yours, Miss.
Thanks very much, and thank you all for being here. In speaking with you today, it has already been said that most of the purpose, the reasoning for having a meeting like this at a time like this is really to have the opportunity to prepare ourselves in sufficient time to be able to be responsive as much as possible to the kinds of issues that we need to respond to in order to make the elections as inclusive as possible. And in saying this, I really want to highlight the fact that there are some fault lines that we are very acutely aware of. And I want to just run through a couple, not because I think these cover all the concerns and all the issues, but because I'm wanting to illustrate some of the challenges that as a commission we face. We know, for example, that one of the concerns is about the staff at the voting stations not having a sufficient understanding, a sufficient respect and sensitivity to the kinds of challenges and issues that people in the disability sector face, particularly when they present themselves at the voting stations. Now, as you will know, in responding to that, aside from some of the facilities and so on that we have attempted to provide, we have also tried to really focus, as we did very intensively in the national and provincial election lead up for 2024, to focus very stringently on this issue, specifically in our training, having additional sessions, asking people from the sector to come and facilitate some of those sessions to sensitize. And we hope that it worked to some extent. But what we're clear about is that it's not like it solved all of those problems. And I think that what we're saying here, and we're saying it very clearly, is that we need, when we're looking at some of these challenges, to recognize that some of the challenges that we're facing, we hope we will improve on. Some of them, we hope there are new things that we can do or do things differently so that the improvement is even more visible. But some of them are going to be challenges that are a much bigger societal issue. Most of the voting station staff are people who are with us for a very limited period of time, including not just the training, but including the days of their role as voting station staff. So when we talk to you, what we are asking you to engage with us on the basis of is a recognition that what we're attempting to do is something that we're attempting to do in as much good faith as you have demanded rightly of us. But we're also saying we don't want to promise something that we know may not be something that is totally in our hands. So we need to work together. We need to work collectively on this, and we need to find the solutions that are the best. I think the second thing is just to say that we're in a situation where we don't at this stage even have certainty about when the election date is. And I know that there will be a presentation which will give us a much clearer understanding of the roadmap. But the reason for having this particular engagement in the early phases of our preparations is because we know that part of the preparations are ensuring that we prepare necessary materials to enable us to work with you to do what we need to do around things like voter education, around issues like making accessible information, not just about the general system that will be used for voting, but also about possibly understanding more detail about complaints and objections that pertain to people's experiences at voting stations, and also hopefully about the possibility of people from the sector themselves becoming candidates. What does that involve? In a locality, people can be considering not just making themselves available through political parties, as you know, but also as individuals. So again, I think what we're wanting to hear is whether or not we're talking about people with various forms of physical disability, or whether they are psychosocial, sensory, or otherwise. What is it in terms of the material that is going to assist people to understand what the election process is about for LGE, for the coming local government elections? And also, how can we enable that material possibly to be adapted in a manner that there's audio on it, that we can use some of the existing material to reproduce in larger text fonts or and so on. The next thing is that, you know, you will hear about issues to do with the manner in which we are going to be using the possibilities of our recruitment processes to try and enable the sector to be part and parcel of our staffing, but also ideas that the province may well be wanting to put to you about how people who are aware of difficulties, challenges, for example, physical challenges that are evident at particular voting stations. You know that we don't own these premises. You know that sometimes the actual way to access a building is very, very difficult for us, even with ramps, to accommodate what needs to be accommodated. And maybe in those instances, the province can share some ideas about how we can encourage people who already know about those challenges that will be faced at that voting station to possibly consider whether or not there is another VD in that particular ward that might have better facilities and that can be looked at. And then from my side, the other thing that I did want to say, and I don't think that it is something that is realistic for the coming elections for a number of reasons, not least of which is a systems a challenge to make sure that we can do this in sufficient advance. But I think most of you will know that globally, the disability sector is looking at how to enable both the election management bodies that they recognize we have our own, as you know, challenges, which sometimes do feel like they increase every day, together with the challenges that that people in the sector face to be properly included. And part of the solution that has been looked at is the opportunity for people from the sector to if they so choose, to self-identify what their particular challenge or disability is, such that their particular voting station can know in advance and be properly prepared in advance to deal with that or those individuals in a manner that is appropriate. You know that we've had engagements, and I think some of you have been involved in those, around the electronic voting discussion, and the upshot or the outcome of those discussions is being put together at the moment in order to be presented, as we promised, to the legislature and then to the nation as a whole. But what I wanted to say about that is, again, just to emphasize that there is no change that is envisaged in terms of electronic equipment in the coming election. So let's be very clear about that. At the same time, one of the things that is certainly able to be demonstrated in some of the equipment that's used in other parts of the world is that assisted voting or assistive voting is enabled by some of the technology. And that's part of the reason why, in order to keep up with what is possible, even if it is only in certain circumstances and not necessarily having to be the same for everybody, which is an option, but that is part of the reason why we do try and keep up with the technology. So I'm simply wanting to emphasize again, there will be no change in this election, but there will quite likely be the report issued, which will be looking at what opportunities have been ventilated, have been identified at some point in the future for some consideration, but we just don't want to have any confusion going forward. So from my point of view, I'm looking forward to hearing and listening to the engagements around all of these issues. And I really wanted to appreciate being here and your being here. And thank you very much for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. A round of applause again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Commissioner Love, for those thoughtful and affirming words. I'm sure everyone here will be looking forward to that report on the future of the e-voting, as you mentioned. One of the things that the Commissioner said was that we are here so that we can be able, as the Electoral Commission, to make improvements in the way that we do business. And I'm hoping that through this engagement, you'll be able to sort of put the mirror on us as the Electoral Commission so that we can be able to reflect ourselves on that one. But also, as she correctly points out, we are also looking at some ideas of how else can we go about doing business so that it is easier for everyone that participates in the elections. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I will now call upon our provincial electoral officer. You know, in some circles, that's how they call them, commissioner, the provincial commissioner. But it is the provincial electoral officer, Mr. Michael Hendrikse. He is our leader in the province. And he started these engagements with different sectors last year together with the manager. And today, it's part of his commitments to make sure that as we proceed to the elections, we've got engagement with all the sectors in the province. Thank you very much, Mr. Hendrikse, for your leadership. Over to you, Stan.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Right at the back. Firstly, welcome again, everybody. It's good to see a full house, and it's really it's evidence of the importance that our sector stakeholders attach to the right to vote, and also the responsibility that the IEC has. I think, as Commissioner Love has stated, you know. What happened? What happened? Still nothing. Oh, my shirt is in the way. I think so too. How's that? And now, can you hear that back? Am I back? Okay, perfect. So thank you very much. As I was saying, thank you very much and welcome. I think the Commissioner has set out very clearly our view as the IEC with regard to how we respond to the challenges, and to also to be able to accommodate our citizens from the disability sector. I think from our side we've tried, but I think there's still a lot of opportunity for us. And part of what we're going to do today, hopefully, is how do we work together and get some of these solutions going. It's not always just about saying, let's change the law, because that will take forever. How do we do things on the ground? I looked at our own stats from the 2024 elections, and you know, we have 18,000 voting officials in this province, and we only had 15 staff members who self-identified as them being disabled. Now, surely that that is something that we can be looking at. Within our regions, we've appointed municipal outreach coordinators, specifically one in each region or districts, as you know, in the province, to be responsible for engaging with the disability sector and to see how we can overcome some of these challenges, to see how we can facilitate engagement with the disability sector and members of that sector as well. So thank you very much for being here. My part of, in terms of my presentation is really, first part is of information sharing in terms of where we're going to, what we're doing. So the first session will really just be saying what is it that we are to be expecting in terms of local government elections as we go forward. Is the presentation up? Sorry for that, folks. These things happen, eh? Yeah. My apologies for the technical glitches here. I don't. I'm so tempted to start talking, but then my presentation will be behind as we go through. But let me do that. You know, with the local government elections coming up at the end of this year, our key messages for our voters out there is going to be, firstly, register where you live, re-register if your address has changed, check and update your registration details. That is going to be critical. Why is this critical? Because for local government elections, you have to vote where you are registered. Okay? In 2024, you could apply to vote at a different voting station. If you were somewhere in the province, you still got a provincial ballot. If you got somewhere in the country, you still had a national ballot, right? But this is local government elections, all right? So it's important that you and your members and their families make sure, firstly, one, that you are registered to vote. Secondly, that you go and check that the details are correct on our website. And you can do that by going online. You can come visit our offices, or even when we do voter registration with our VMD device, we can scan your ID and see what we currently have. Remember, we have data going back to 1998. Many of you started voting then, remember? But that time it was still a paper-based thing, and you just gave us an address and said Smith Street or what. Now we need more particularity with regard to that. We need to know where. For example, you guys know in Cape Town, Voortrekker is the longest road in Cape Town, but it starts here and ends other side, Kuils River. So where in Voortrekker are you? Because it can depend on which voting district you fall in, and by extension, in which ward you are also resident. So it's critical that you and your members check that, in fact, all your details is correct. Secondly, we know that when we apply for an ID, you know, you go out and you give your address at Home Affairs. But that was the first time and last time you probably gave Home Affairs your address. But the same doesn't happen with the IEC, please, because you may be moving. You know, you were in this election, you were there. The next election, you're going to be somewhere else. Give us the place of residence where you are going to be for this local government elections, because you do not want to have a situation of arriving at the voting station and then they say, sorry, sir, you have to vote at a different voting station. That is the last thing you want to do. And remember, just because you could have voted at a different voting station in 2024 doesn't mean that you can go and vote again at that same station for local government. So to avoid the disappointment, avoid of standing, and a lot of times that is, I'm not saying the queues are not our fault, it is mostly our fault, but sometimes people are literally just standing in the wrong place. And sometimes, unfortunately, also is because political parties simply say, no, 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 don't worry, you can go vote there, you can go vote there, go there, go there, go there. And the poor voters left standing there and then being told, sorry. So please make sure that, firstly, one, that you and your members are registered to vote, and it is in the correct voting district. My colleague, Manager Belinda, will be going through the process we've been doing with regard to our voting districts, etc. But that is our key message. Register where you live, re-register if your address has changed, or update your details just to make sure that you are sorted. All right. So, as I said, there's no Section 24. We know that thing of vote coming before the time. The only things that you can do is vote on election day at the voting district, or you can apply for a special vote at your voting station and come and vote on the Monday or the Tuesday. All right. But that is at the voting station where you are registered. And that is very easy, guys. That is very easy. You simply send us a SMS. You can go online. You can drop an application or fill it in at our local office. And all you then do is pitch up at that voting station. It's as easy as that. In fact, I'd encourage more and more people to do that because it is a form of early voting. Instead of waiting for the Wednesday, when you're going to have all these queues and queues and queues of people, early voting. In the old days, this was reserved for police and for nurses and journalists and IEC. That all has fallen away. All we want to know is, you say, I want to come and vote on the Monday. Why is it important still? It is important because we need to make sure that there are sufficient ballot papers at that voting station. Remember, if this is a voting station with 3,000 voters, we can't on day 1, day 2, and day 3 make sure that there's 3,000 ballots. It's a security risk. Huh? We can't send all those ballots for the Monday and it's only 200 people coming there. Then it's a security risk for strong. So that is literally why we need the information about people who want to come and vote early at that voting station. It is easy. It is easy. Once the timetable is there, the election timetable will tell you when you can apply for a special vote to vote at the voting station. The second one is your home visits. All right. Again, if you're in the voting district where you are registered, you can apply for a home visit, but that is limited to 3 categories. All right. You are infirm, you are disabled, or you are pregnant, to the extent that you cannot get to the voting station. Now we do that, and you know, I've looked at in the last election. Let me just see. We had how many special vote applications? There was 135,000 applications for special votes in our province, of which 94,000 people used the opportunity. Okay, so people apply. It is there. It's available. But the important thing when it comes to home visits is that the one problem that the IEC has with the home visits is its abuse. You know, you have political parties, you have people applying for a home visit who are not disabled, who are not infirm, they are not bedridden. Now we get at that home and we find this young person sitting on the stoep with his okka pipe. In the meantime, what it does is it puts pressure on us as the IEC, because we only have that day, remember? We have to visit all. Now you run the risk of not getting to the genuine voter. And secondly, it is a waste of state resources because we need now to travel. We need the political parties to go with us and police to escort us. Here on the West Coast, in one case, our teams had to drive close to 160 kilometers to a farm for special votes, only to get there and the people say, no, this guy doesn't know about this. He's working in town. So you waste time, effort, and as I said, the people with a genuine need for a home visit is possibly compromised. Now our teams have to work right into the night at 10 o'clock to get to everybody. So it's unfortunate that it is abused. All right. So please, when your members are applying for that, let them apply for a home visit, but make sure that they are aware of it. Because remember, the whole idea of a home visit is that you will, oops, now it's working. No? Okay. So the whole idea of a home visit is you are at home. Not I'll be home between 10 and 11. Where else are you going to be? Because you said, come to my home. No, you can't say, please come to my home for a vote, but I'm going to be the morning, I'm out shopping. Because we don't make a time with you, because we say you applied for a home visit anytime between 8 and 5 o'clock, you'll have to be home. If you're not there, the team is going to move on, unfortunately. And then you'll have to make your own arrangements to get to the voting station on election day. But nobody wants to have that situation. No? So please make sure that and when we do the home visits, please ensure that your members are aware of the fact that we will at all times still ensure the secrecy of the ballot. Just because you're doing a vote at home doesn't mean that we want to compromise how you are voting. You will still make your cross in private there, fold it up, put it in an envelope, seal that envelope, and on that envelope it's a blank. There's no name on there. And then you put it in a larger envelope on which your name and details will be, so that when we get to the voting station, we can tick your name off on the voters roll. But then we place that envelope, unmarked envelope, in the box with everybody else, so nobody knows how you voted. But it's important that your members also understand that particular process. They don't think, wat se koevert is dit nou? Wat gaan nou hier aan? Pink koevert, blou koevert, what? No, it's all aimed at making sure that you can have the secrecy of the ballot. So just make guys, let's make sure that we follow. So my present, just an overview quickly. Those are the laws that will apply to our elections. Always make sure that we read what the law. Don't say Michael said. Michael said is not the law. No? I try and tell you what it is, but at the end of the day, it is what is written in the act. That is what I just went through now with regard to the special votes. But please, guys, please, early voting is an option. You can avoid a lot of trouble on election day, queues. Even you, it doesn't matter who you are. Any South African can apply for a special vote to vote at the station. I do it. My teams do it. I tell my mom to do it, even though she insists she wants to see the action. She says, no, but I don't want to miss the action on election day. And I say, Mom, you're 91 years old. Please just go and vote. My brother will drive past the action for you. But anyway, that's how, but I mean, that's also our reality in our communities, especially our older folk want to celebrate their democracy. They want to assert for what has not been their right for how many years. So you also understand that. And that is the reality of where we are. In terms of our outreach and communication, we intend to do a lot more with regard to digital and media content. We're developing a social media strategy, because that is really the new way to, you can't put your head in the sand anymore. This is the reality of the information age of where we're going to. As I said, register where you live, vote where you are registered. We also have online voter registration campaigns. It makes it so much easier. You create a profile on our website, www.elections.org.za. Go on there and you can register. Or if you want to change your details, similarly, you change your details. You don't have to wait for the IEC official, or you don't have to wait for the registration weekend. You can simply do it in the comfort of your own home. We also go to tertiary institutions. We, in fact, launched our tertiary institution campaign, where we're going to campuses, all the campuses, both the universities and our TVETs, where we want to get and encourage young people to participate, to register and to vote. We have a schools democracy program that we run every year. We will launch it in April. But we literally, in this province, we've done over 200 school visits in a year, 220 school visits. So we go to schools, we talk during life orientation, we go when Home Affairs goes out with their trucks to do, we go with them. Because obviously, but when you get your ID, someone want to say, register, because you can register from the age of 16, but you vote. Then we have our stakeholder engagement like this, but we also do it at our regional level and also at our local level. We have different engagements with our stakeholders, because we realize that as the IEC, in this province, we've got 74 permanent staff only, one in each municipality, for example. We don't have the necessary footprint. And that's why it's so critical for us to work with our stakeholders, because our stakeholders' footprint into the community is so much more broader. The levels of trust that you have with your members is so much more higher. All right, because if you say to people, listen, the IEC is coming, they will then say, okay. So there's that too. And then we also have our community outreach events. These are events that we organize, especially in the more vulnerable areas. We go to the deep rural areas, the small little towns, where they don't always have the services. So we go to Maritzburg, we go up to Ebenezer, Herbertsdale, Zoar, where people don't necessarily have services. So what we do is we do our voter registration for 5-minute talk, and then we make sure all the government departments are with us. So Home Affairs is there, Health is there, SASSA is there, the municipality is indigent, even the Master's Office goes with us. Because very poor people don't have the luxury of drawing up a will. But now you have a Master's Office there to help them and say, here is a will. And deal with some of we have the Department of Labor. So the idea is, with that community outreach, we take services with us to make the right to vote tangible. Because that's why you vote, isn't it? For services. So it's no use me just talking every time and saying, oh, you must vote. We make it actually a connection. And I promise you, especially in some of those towns, Merweville, where you have to travel 168 kilos to Beaufort to get to an office to do something. And then you get told, sorry, sir, you must have this thing stamped. So at our sessions, we make sure there's a policeman with a commissioner of oath stamp. So when you make a copy, right there, and you give it to SASSA. So it's literally making sure that we're connecting services to the right to vote. And that is what we're doing, and we will continue to do it in our most marginalized rural areas as well. Just quickly, for those who are interested, so registration of parties, we have a multi-party democracy, so political parties can participate as well as independents. And you can register your party at a national level, a provincial level, which means you can only contest in that particular province, or you can register a party at a district council level, which means the district and all the local councils in that region, or in the metro. All right. So yeah, it's a prescribed manner to register a party. If you want to register a party at a national level, you need 1,000 signatures of supporters, or signatures of 1,000 supporters. For province, it's 500 signatures, and district or metro, it's 300. So it's very easy. At the moment, we have, I don't know, it was December, I got this thing. We had 493 parties registered in our country. Nice, eh? But they were at different levels, by the way. So of that, 294 were national registered parties. For our province, there's only one party that registered to only contest in our province, and then there was 41 parties that were registered just to contest in a particular municipality, as the case may be. So when you say, oh, who do I vote for? There's enough options there. Yeah, look there, look at their website, check out what they're standing for. And if you're still not happy, form a party. Stand as an independent. For the independent to contest the ward, you're going to need 50 signatures of people or voters from that ward. 50? Stand as an independent. But all I'm saying is those are the options. I can't get to you about all the other logistical and organizational challenges that go with it. That's another thing. But all I'm saying is, as a democracy, we make it easy to register a party, because given our past where political associations were banned, we make it easy to participate or form a party. So that happens in terms of political parties. Just another area I want to just highlight is it's not only election time that we engage with political parties. We have what we call these liaison committees at the different levels, at the national level, provincial level, and in each municipality. And the idea is to liaise with those political parties who are represented in the different legislatures. And there's a lot of discussions that go on. People think, the IEC just does things on its own. We will consult them, for example, on the location of our voting stations, on the size of our voting districts. In fact, that is what Belinda and the team is doing at the moment. They're going through and seeing how the voting districts are there. So we talk to people. When we deal with presiding officers, we present the names to them and say, listen, do you know if these people have any high political profile or office bearers? Because a lot of times you get told, yeah, but these people are biased. But you have the opportunity to raise So we don't hire the people if they have a high political profile. So if you know of people, speak to, then we do training, we deal with, at the national level with electoral staff recruitment, legislation changes, etc. My idea, what I'm trying to say here is that there's an ongoing consultation with all our stakeholders, including the political parties as well. So coming to our elections. So this elections is literally managed by our Municipal Electoral Act. And that deals then with the municipal, the PR, as well as the ward elections. So if you want to know anything, this is what you go Google. Don't go Google Electoral Act because that deals with national parliament. Okay, this is the law that guides the IEC, that guides the political parties in terms of the processes that we will do. So the Municipal Structures Act says that there will be a category A municipality, a B municipality, a C. A metro council like Cape Town, the law says cannot have more than 270 councillors. Maybe that's thank goodness. No? But anyway, you cannot have more than 270 councillors in a metro. In a district or local council, you cannot have less than 10 and more than 90, because you have to limit, obviously, the number of people that are there, because otherwise you have too many councillors. And then also, so this Structures Act sets out, for example, what is out there. Now, very importantly, many of you will want to know when is the elections. We don't know. IEC doesn't know. IEC is consulted by the Minister of Cooperative Governance, the national minister, who has to determine and proclaim the date of the election. But what we do know is that the election must take place between 1st of November and 30th of January next year. Why? Because the law says 90 days from the end of term. Now you remember the last election? That was the COVID election. It was held on the 1st of November. So in that, so 5 years from then, so councillors stop being councillors on the 1st, and then there's 90 days. So anywhere in that window, we can have elections. We can have elections in November this year. We can have it in December. I was at for a Christmas dinner. I just want to go vote quickly and come back. Hopefully not. And also in January. It's still challenges in January because there's a lot of, everybody's still at home, and places are closed and schools are closed. But hopefully we'll soon hear about an announcement of the date so that we can all prepare. But from the IEC side, we prepare for the 4th of November because that's the first possible date. But we have to have something. But it's not going to necessarily be the 4th. But we work on for the planning purposes. Our by-elections, you'll have seen all these by-elections. Every week you see somebody resigning. No? George has become the capital of by-elections at the moment because every time you hear the councillor has left and then whatever. But what the law says is that there will be a moratorium on by-elections in the run-up to the elections, to the big elections. So any vacancy that arises after April, we will not be holding any by-elections anymore because the country and us have to get ready for the big elections. All right. So for now, we will still be having by-elections. I think the latest round is in George, Uniondale, 22nd of April. Cape Town, Saldanha Bay, there'll be 2. Cape Town and Oudtshoorn is on the 25th of April. So there'll still be by-election activities around the country for now. Just again to recap, in our province we have 1 metro, 24 local councils and 5 districts. We also have 416 wards. Okay, so essentially we'll be having 446 separate elections. Why? Because there's going to have to be unique ballots. Every ward ballot will be different because the names of candidates are different. All right. And then the municipality, each municipality's PR will be different because some parties will contest, some will not contest. Same like with, so in essence, we have 446 elections going forward. Now, just to give you an extent of what happened in 2021, we had in 2021 we had over 12,400 candidates contesting elections. There was 96 parties contesting elections, of which 53 were in the metro. So you can see there's a lot of activity. because especially at local government level, your community-based parties would be contesting, all right? And so we look at our voting districts. In the last election, we had 1,572, and we hope to increase that. The voters roll was at September 2025 was 3.274 million. It's less than what we have during the general election. Why? Because people pass away. And then there's not that new people coming in. All right, so you can on an average, unfortunately, lose up to 35,000 South Africans die every month. So they come off the voters roll because that's registered with Home Affairs. So your numbers will drop and then it will pick up. And then we will be having our registration weekends as well to make ensure that people have. That is just a breakdown of the wards. So in our province, Mossel Bay has now got 2 extra wards. Saldanha Bay has got 2. Overstrand has got an extra ward. Cape Town's got 2 extra wards simply because of the population growth. Because you know our cities are growing, our towns are growing. And then in the smaller municipalities of Laingsburg, Kannaland, and Prince Albert, they will now also have an additional ward because you have to satisfy the minimum of 10 councillors. So that is really the situation overall. But for the rest, the number of wards stays the same. Now, when it comes to the voting, so in the metro, for those who stay in the metro, you'll receive 2 ballot papers, all right? You're going to receive a ward ballot on which the name of your candidate, and that candidate can either be an independent or from a political party, okay? So in the metro, you're going to get a ward ballot and you're going to get a PR ballot. PR ballot is only political parties because its very nature, it means it's a proportional, means you have to have a party list. The independent cannot have a list of 1 because that's why he or she is standing as a ward candidate, okay? So in the metro, our voters will be receiving 2, and that has always been the case. And then for those voters who are outside of the metro, you will receive 3 ballot papers. Why? Because outside of the metros, you still have district councils as well, okay? So you'll have a ward, again, individual name of the candidate will be there. Their logo, in the case of an independent, we'll put his picture there, a photo, sorry. Proportional, we'll have the parties for that municipality, and then a district council will be the 3rd ballot. So just remember, again, especially for those in the metro, don't confuse what happened in 2024 when we had 3 ballots, remember, in the metro as well. For local government, metro, you get 2 ballots. Outside the metro, 3 ballots, okay? This is just a quick sort of draft critical path in terms of where we are, in terms of the IEC preparations. We work on going to more or less somewhere there in terms of when the elections will be, but there's a lot of work that takes place leading up here. So we're busy with looking at our voting districts. Then we go into what we call a targeted communication registration campaign. In other words, those areas where the voting district boundaries has been affected, we go into those communities and tell people, please make sure that you know now your voting station has changed, okay? But it's those particular things. Then we hope to have a registration weekend in June sometime. And then from there onwards we start, and then the minister will proclaim the election. Once the minister proclaims, that is the legal instrument that's required. And then the IEC issues a timetable, and that timetable will say to parties and independents, this is when candidate nomination opens, this is when it closes, this is when the voters' roll is open for inspection, this is when you can lodge objections, and so on and so on. Because remember, this process is critical, that we have to make sure that the candidates are in. Why? Because, for example, in our province, we're going to have to print close to 8 million ballot papers. So printing of those ballot papers is not easy. You need to print that bulk, but then remember, because you have 446 elections, you need to make sure that the right ballot goes to the right ward. So it's not just about saying there it is 7.5 million, voila. You need to manage that logistics of making sure that the right numbers and the right ballot goes to the right voting district. No? And that's why the timetable is such that we need time to deal with those things. But as I said, our manager will talk more of the processes that we're doing in the lead up to this election. And then as we do with the results process, it will follow the process that we've always been doing, where the voting takes place, counting. That's the one thing, guys. I don't know why there's always this talk on social media about, yeah, the IC counts the ballots separately somewhere. We don't do that. We count at the voting station, in the presence of the party agents, right there and then. We don't take it and go somewhere secret. Never ever. Never ever. Every party that's contesting the election can have an agent present there during the whole day and the evening. So that is the counting takes place there. In fact, we actually take one of the result slips and we put it up there at the door, so the voters in that community can actually see how people voted in that voting district. And then we go through a whole verification process to check that everything is right, the numbers are tallied up right and stuff like that. Because remember, one of the realities is fatigue management for the IEC. Our voting staff start working, or they leave their home at 3 o'clock in the morning of that election. And then they work through the day. Then by 9 o'clock, they convert and they have to start counting. All right. So sometimes you will make a mistake, but that's why our systems is there to pick up some of those errors and correct them if it does happen. And again, those corrections are published. You can see on our website the actual result slips. I don't know where in the world where electoral commissions publish the actual document from the station, so that you can actually see this was the one signed at the station and what was captured. You can actually do the things right there. Very open, very transparent. So we a lot of things, but we are very transparent, and we have independent auditors that also check our work. They don't work for the IEC, they are professional auditors, and then we will announce the result. We try and do that within 14 days. Okay, I mean 7 days, not 14, 7 days. The council meetings have to take place within 14 days of the first council meeting. But that's when that fun and game starts, when you don't have majority parties and stuff. But that's something that's not in our hands. We've delivered the election. But that, in a nutshell, is again just the process leading up to the local government elections. We'll deal with questions and answers after Belinda's session. But so if you note, please make a note of your questions, and then you can ask us when we have our interactive session. But thank you very much for the opportunity talking to you. Thank you for listening to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, PEO. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. No. Okay, so we'll proceed. Thank you, PO, for giving us an overview of the provincial activities, but also outlining to us the province's commitment to continued engagement and accessibility. I know that the next session or the next presentation will be giving us a look at the 2026 local government elections because preparations have basically started. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we want to make sure that we've got accessible voting stations. We want to make sure that when we do voter education, it is meaningful. We want to make sure that participation, your participation, is inclusive in all the activities that we do. Now I'll invite our manager. I know most of you only know who Mr. Hendricks, but we've got the manager who makes sure that all these activities that the PO was talking about actually do happen. And that's Miss Belinda Beleni, who will take us through our roadmap to 2026 LGE. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Malusi. Good morning to the Commissioner. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Hendricks. I would like to extend greetings to those who are logged in online, who are with us. Greetings to all the organizations that have come out to have this conversation with us. We really do appreciate all of you. Thank you very much. As has been introduced, my name is Bulelwa Belinda Mbeleni. I am in the Electoral Operations Department for the province. Okay. I am going to cover our voting district delimitation process. I am going to speak a little bit on our targeted communication registration, on the current status of our voters roll. I will touch also on our staff recruitment. As you know, the commission expands closer to elections. We rely a lot on people to be able to assist us. As you know, it's a huge logistical exercise, and as we cannot do it on our own. Thank you. And then I will touch a little bit on the candidate nomination. What we have done immediately after the national provincial elections in 2024, we went on to review our voting districts. And the objective thereof was to ensure that we reduce highly populated voting stations. As you will recall, we experienced long queues, unprecedented. We needed to have a relook at how we organize our voting stations. We needed to secure alternative voting stations. As the commissioner mentioned earlier, we do not own these venues. So it's important that we ensure that we have alternatives in case the one that voters are used to going to is no longer available. Another objective is to reduce temp facilities. It is not a good sight for us to see voters voting from a tent, but you will appreciate the fact that we are not able to always be able to secure structures, buildings. Our objective was also to ensure that our voting centers function optimally and also assess our staff performance. It is important for us that the service we deliver on election day is of a good quality. Now, every local government election, the Municipal Demarcation Board has a responsibility in terms of the law to review ward boundaries and ensure that there are certain norms that are adhered to. This is intended to make sure that there is an equal distribution of resources from municipalities and that service delivery is improved upon. Now, they consulted vastly throughout the provinces to, ensure that voters and the entire community and citizens are aware that there will be changes to how their wards are structured. The process was finalized in December and they handed over the new ward map set to the commission. And now this is where our responsibility commences. It is important that we ensure all voters have access to our voting stations. So what we are currently busy with is to ensure that where the MDB has either splitting of voters means that the MDB, because they work with norms, if a ward is in excess of the ward norm, they will take voters and move them to a different ward. That is the process they followed. Now, we needed then to realign our voting districts to what they have done. And as part of the process as well, to ensure that voters don't have to travel long to their voting stations, we needed to make sure that in terms of size, in terms of location, and all the infrastructure, especially when it comes to temp structures, that we are going to be ready. I always say to the team that this is where we make or break an election. This is where voters will be comfortable and to exercise their right. We've also reviewed our voting centers. A voting center, I will indicate in one of my slides. The concept of voting center was introduced in 2011. Because of the challenge with voting stations and the high numbers of people in voting districts, it was important for the commission to make sure that voters don't stand too long in queues. So a voting center is a voting station with different venues where voters can go and vote. So it could be a school with different classrooms. Mr. Hendrikse earlier mentioned that following this process, because of all the changes, voters who might not be voting where they are used to vote. So it is our responsibility to ensure that voters are made aware. So we will visit voters in May to ensure that firstly, you are aware whether your ward number has changed, because in some instances, the MDB would have moved a whole voting district to a different ward. If your ward has changed, we will communicate with you that your ward has changed. If your voting district has changed, we will do the same. But added to that, we need to make sure that you are then registered at the correct voting station, in line with the legal requirement that you register and vote where you live. This project we will conduct in May. There's a challenge that we experience, and what we have done in the past, we've ensured that before we come out, we educate voters, because voters refuse to be re-registered. If it's convenient for me to vote at a specific high school, voters don't understand why they need to go to a different location. So we will ensure that we bring forth that understanding. We commenced with our recruitment, with our staff recruitment last year. And in terms of the law, and this I emphasized to political parties because there's a tendency not to recognize presiding and deputy presiding officers. We literally hand over to them to manage our voting stations. And it is in terms of the law. It is not something that we just want to do. So presiding officers are in charge of our voting stations. Now, as a commission, we moved from recruiting, manual recruitment. There's a system that works very well for us, especially when it comes to payment of staff, of people that have worked for us. It is called the e-recruitment system. Mr. Hendrickson mentioned earlier that voters need to create profiles and be able to apply for positions that we advertise. What we have done as a province, because we recognize that not all voters have got access to certain resources, especially computers and airtime and data. We liaised with e-centers of all the municipalities in the province. They were trained so that voters are then able to be assisted at the e-centers to create the profiles to apply for positions that we advertise. Now, with every election, we experience a high number of fraudulent advertisements. And we communicate around that to caution the entire public. Positions that are advertised by the Electoral Commission will have specific identifiers. One is our website, and most of these adverts have got a different website. But I understand that people are desperate, don't actually look very closely. So all our advertisements will have our website, www.elections.org.za. If it is not there, then you must know that it is a fake advert. Now, there are other categories of staff that we are currently recruiting. Municipal outreach coordinators are a group of people that will be assisting us with voter education. They will be visiting your communities, they will be educating voters on a variety of topics. We will also, or we have appointed assistant project coordinators. That group of staff will assist with operations. They will be able to help us liaise with our voting station landlords and entire operations, as it were. We will then be looking at conflict management and resolution support. It is important that we ensure that the election is free and fair, there's proper access and less violence. So they will be assisting us to ensure that the environment is conducive for voters to be able to exercise their rights. We will also appoint area managers on short term for each of our main events. They assist with the material management. We have a provincial warehouse. We will have local storage sites where our material is picked and packed per VD, and they will assist with the distribution and rollback of that material. Now, coming to the voters' roll. In terms of access, we have the online registration platform, and I am aware that it has been vastly advertised and voters are actually using it. All our local offices are open from 8 to 5, and voters are more than welcome to come and register. When we go out to communities for education purposes, we also afford them the opportunity to register. As mentioned before, we will also have 2 registration weekends. I am only mentioning the one for now, which will be the 20th to the 21st, the weekend of the 2021, June 2026. And we are working towards ensuring that all our voting stations will be ready to service you. Now, Mr. Hendrickson mentioned where we stand in terms of the voters' roll as in September last year. This is just to highlight what we have done as a province following NPE 2024. In terms of our overall registration activities, we had a total of about 88,000 voters that have either registered anew or new registrations that have moved, because it is required of voters to inform the commission when they change their address. Remember, an address is linked to a specific voting district, so it's important that you re-register so that your address reflects correctly within a specific ward in a voting district. We managed to register new people who've never registered ever before, 35,828 to date. Just a little bit of a challenge there. Voters in the period after the election did not understand why they needed to register. So it's been a struggle that we work towards to ensure that voters understand that they need to register if they intend to vote. Now, below the ages of 18 years, we managed to register 1,967 young people through our engagements with schools and communities. And between the ages of 18 to 21, we managed to register 20,920 young people. Now, youth participation for us is very important. And before NPE 2024, the Commission engaged the Human Science Research Council just to get an understanding as to what is it that prevents them from participating in both registration and the actual election. And this was some of the outcomes of that research. If you want to interact with the research, it is on our website. But for the purposes of this discussion today, I just decided to focus on few of these, of the outcomes. Of the participants that were part of the survey, 43% said that they were registered. 36% were adamant they would not register. Now, those are the people we need to engage with. 30% of the unregistered intended to register before NPE, and we saw an improvement in the registration of young people in NPE 2024. The primary reason given for not intending to register amongst the unregistered was political disillusionment. 60% were aware that you could register online. Those who intended to register were particularly unaware of this option. Thus, the enhancement of our communication campaigns around the online registration. 71% were not willing to use their own data to register to vote online, and this was particularly true of the poor. And the intervention, as I mentioned before, was for us to liaise with e-centers so that people can be assisted to for both, staff recruitment and also to be able to register. Just continuing with the youth challenge. When we went into the NPE 2024 election, we had a gap looking at the voting age population versus what the youth that we had registered. The gap was standing at 73% across the country. Now, to further deal with the issue, we embarked on a project last year. Now, the thinking behind this project was to ensure that the youth register themselves at tertiary institutions. So we appointed 3 students. We provided them with training and the resources to be able to register their peers. And it was a very successful project for our province. Because it was a pilot, we only targeted 11 institutions. But the intention now, from February to March, is to ensure that all our institutions in the province participate in the project. So we are in the process of doing that. As mentioned before, the online registration campaign was launched just the other day. We require for voters to ensure that their details are correctly reflected on the voters' roll. Voter education for the youth needs to prioritize civic consciousness, emphasize duty and responsibility, and that is the intention. Now, moving on to candidate nomination, Mr. Hendrikse already touched on the requirements and when it should happen. What we have done last year was to liaise with all political parties, both represented and unrepresented, and also those independents that participated previously, to encourage them to use the online candidate nomination system. What it does, it takes away human error from our side, in the sense that when parties submit, remember we mentioned that it would be 446 elections. Imagine receiving all those documents and the local office has to quality assure and make sure that each and every piece of paper is correct and lands on our system. We are encouraging them to use the online registration candidate nomination because it's got a few benefits. One of which, the system will open earlier than the date on the timetable, on the election timetable. This is just so that they are able to make sure that their candidates are correctly registered, because the requirement is that you must be registered in that municipality that you are contesting. You cannot be registered in George and expect to contest the elections in the city of Cape Town. So when they capture their candidates, they are able to immediately see that this candidate needs to register if the registration is still open, failing which they will be disqualified. It also ensures the decentralized capturing of candidate lists. For bigger political parties, they can assign rights to different people to capture, and this happens outside of our systems. The only time we get to see what has been captured is on the day when they submit. So they continue working offline, save changes, and then when they submit, only then we have access to that information. So it's very secure. It also ensures seamless payment of deposits via the payment gateway. And on that note, I wish to thank you very much for listening to me. Enkosi bayadanke.
Thank you very much, Manager, for those comprehensive details. Ladies and gentlemen, I think now we have a clear sense of direction and highlights of the areas busy with as the Electoral Commission. As I said earlier on, our PO was giving us the overview and the manager gave us the details. I think it also gave us an opportunity as we are seated here for us to see the areas where we can be able to have that interaction on in terms of areas that you need us as the Electoral Commission to explain more, or either to maybe make sure that we tighten our activities more in terms of making sure that persons with disabilities are included or catered for. Thank you very much, Manager. But it then gives us now, ladies and gentlemen, an opportunity for an interactive session where we want to listen. We've been talking from the commissioner right to the manager. We've been basically telling you what is it that we are doing. I think it's now an opportunity for us to listen. We encourage you, ladies and gentlemen, to share your experiences, your concerns. Also, tell us practical recommendations where possible, things that you think we might do differently, whether it relates to voting station accessibility, voter education materials, voter education at large, as we do it in communities. As the commissioner said earlier on, technologies, or even communication barriers. Your insights in this session matter. Let us use the space constructively, respectfully, but also let's be open to all the ideas. I'll now call upon our PO who will facilitate the session. This is after all his meeting, so over to you, PO.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, this is the opportunity to engage with us. We've given you a lot of the information, but the important thing, obviously, is how do we exercise that right to vote, and what are some of the roadblocks that are in the way, specifically around persons with disabilities. How do we actually be able to come to those? What are some of the challenges that we can do practically on the ground and respond to this? Because at the end of the day, every South African is entitled to a dignified manner of voting. Doesn't matter who you are, where you are from. We as the IEC need to make sure that we go out of our way to ensure that South Africans are entitled to exercise their right to vote in a dignified manner. So yes, So,
Testing.
and that's not because me and I'm a couple of years away from my retirement, but we're going to have a break, a bathroom break, for about what, 5, 10 minutes, 10-minute break. There'll be tea outside as well. So grab a cup of tea, stretch the legs, chat, whatever, and then we can come back and then we'll start our session. Thank you very much.
did as citizen of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? I once again do apologize, guys, for the problems we're having with our sound. Our apologies. I'm going to respond to some of these questions and comments, and then we're going to go through another round. So, okay. So with regard to the Braille, yes, we note that, and I apologize for that. It was literally due to the... No, I'm not even going to make excuses. I apologize for that. I will also deal with our national office to make sure that our material that we receive is also converted into Braille, not only programs, but all our voter material, so that it is available also in Braille. So I will take that up with our national office as well, and I'm glad my commissioner is also here to hear. But again, apologies for that oversight. With regard to elections and participation from the Gugulethu Sports Council, we can only respond when we get the information. So I'm not sure if you have been in contact with our regional office to advise us of these events. We don't always know when the events are taking place. So that is also part and parcel why we'd like to get this stakeholder engagement, so we can update our contact details, and then when something is happening, please let us know. We attend a lot of events. We obviously will not attend each event because sometimes we just don't know the event is actually taking place. So when there's something happening, let us know. If you do not have the contact details, and we have 3 of our regional outreach officers here today. Stephanie from the Winelands, Ushi from the Metro, and Ellsworth from the West Coast, and then also Mosidi from Overberg. All right, but they are here. But if you ever want to get in touch with us, email. Our general email address is infowc@elections.org.za. Besides specific individual that you communicate with the IEC. But if there's any questions you ever have about to the IEC's provincial team, infowc@elections.org.za. We'll put it up later on. But please, we are keen to support you when you have your events, to attend those particular events, and to engage with voter education issues as well. In terms of what are the sort of processes that already exist in terms of our legislation, firstly, one, at the voting station, the law allows for persons with disabilities to be assisted at the voting station with a person of his or her choice. Okay, they come to the voting station, and if you're bringing somebody of your choice to assist you, the 2 of you will be going into the booth. Nobody else goes into the booth. The only time that the voter is assisted is if the voter doesn't come with somebody, in which case then the presiding officer will assist, but then the presiding officer has to do that in the presence of 2 agents. The purpose being, obviously, is that the parties want to make sure that the presiding officer is not influencing the individual how to vote. It is a massive limitation on the right to secrecy. We're much aware of that. We also provide a Braille template for those persons with a eyesight impairment, so that they can, we insert the ballot in the template, and that particular individual on his or her own goes into the booth to make their cross based on how the template is, because the template is set up to assist voters with impairment in terms of that. Then other process matters, we will also always try and assist disabled persons when they arrive at the voting station, to take them to the front of the queue to minimize their discomfort. Ma'am, we do not distinguish between the various types, if I may call it like that, of disability. If you are disabled, you are disabled. We don't call up. We make very clear to our presiding officers, we are not medical people. We are not, it's not for us to interrogate somebody's disability. You self-identify and we will assist you accordingly. Okay, so it doesn't matter the type of disability that you will have in terms of that. So in terms of the, and then again, I don't know, and maybe the partners from the Council for the Blind can assist us. Like we said, we have an online system of registry. Now, I don't know how that converts to persons who need assistance, and whether they will have programs that can feed in so that you can convert when you're doing an online registration application. Will it be able to help? And I'd like to have a discussion with especially the colleagues from the Council for the Blind. Is there a way in which our online system can actually also facilitate somebody in that regard who has a sight impairment? So I'd really like to engage and find out so that we can tell our IT people, if it is possible, to help in that particular regard. Again, abbreviations, yes, it's we tend to get involved with, we just say MDB and we assume everybody knows, or IEC or whatever. Our apologies for that too, because we get into and it's good you remind us that sometimes we have to just step back also in terms of that. Then with the community outreach events, these are very localized. So, for example, what the team will do in that area, they will go out and engage with the stakeholders. We'll advertise it in the newspapers that circulate in that particular area. So, for example, we wouldn't send a general note out if it's happening in, for example, Zoar, but it will deal with the stakeholders in that particular area to assist them. So that is how we respond to that. Vacancies. Look, all our vacancies are, and it also responds to the gentleman at the back. All our vacancies are on our website. We use a e-recruit system. All right, so you go on site and you create a profile for yourselves. In other words, you load who you are, your CV, what qualifications you have, etc., etc. That is your profile. There's no limitation on your profile because that is who you are. Thereafter, then you're going to look at the jobs that are available within the IEC. We have a lot of jobs that are advertised from time to time. Not only during election time, because these are fixed-term contracts for 12 months, but the IEC is a permanent organization. We have permanent posts that become vacant. And anybody is entitled to apply for those particular posts. We do not have a process of reservation of posts for example, for disabled persons, but we encourage everyone to apply for these particular positions. The IEC is actually a very good employer. We are a permanent organization, offer very competitive salaries. You belong to the government pension fund, so you have a good pension fund. For those who are already working at government, you can apply and transfer to. But and we have generally good working conditions. But we're always open to persons to please just apply and go online. As I indicated, we have specifically appointed municipal outreach coordinators in each region to liaise with the disability sector, and my colleagues from the regions can attest to the fact that they were engaging with stakeholders in those regions to identify suitable individuals to apply for those, because those particular positions were reserved for persons with disabilities or persons who work with people with disabilities, because you need to interact with the sector. So you need to know the sector, and we have gone through that process. But again, if you want to look at what's being advertised and then apply to, and you can also apply to work at our voting station. Come work for us. There are certain requirements, obviously. For example, to be a presiding officer, you must have a level of supervisory and professional experience, which is to be expected because you're managing the station and people and problem. But by all means, those are definitely open to employment. Also, to the gentleman, there's a municipal manager phoning me. Must be another vacancy. I don't know. Sorry for that. It's crazy season out there. You'll hear every time there's a by-election, man. These guys are moving, eh? Sure. But anyway, but I digress. Candidate nomination. So again, what as Belinda said, we did go out last year, and we invited not only the political parties who are in the councils, but all those who are who are just registered. They don't have people in councils. We also looked at the organizations around, and there were a lot of stakeholders who attended those sessions where we go through the process of what does it take to be a candidate. What is the process? What is the requirements? And again, if your organization wants to have that particular thing, ask us to come to a session and we'll explain to you. You know, we come to you, you come to our office. We can take you through what does the candidate nomination process entail, you know, signatures, what's the deposit maybe, what are other requirements, etc., etc. So by all means, if you want to engage with us anytime, let us know, either through our regional officials or directly with the provincial office, as I said, at that email address. We really, really, and I'm so glad I'm seeing a lot of new faces here as well. All of you are beautiful, but anyway, but there's new faces. Because it's important, you know, one of the big challenges for all of us, and I'm sure you also have it, is maintaining updated databases. You know, you'll have an email and then somebody changes or moves away, and now that email is, now we think we're talking to you. In the meantime, it's landing somewhere out there. So please always, let's from both our sides, from the IEC side, but also from your side, let's make sure that you let us know when there's a change of personnel or an email address or a phone number. Let us please know about that. And like I said, I'll put up that address for really, it's going to be critical as we go forward. And before we get into the next session, this is a partnership that we want to have. So it's not always about what you can do for the IEC, but what we can do for you as well. How do we support you? Sometimes it doesn't have to be just about election work specifically, but how do we as an institution come to you and also support you? Okay, in your events and stuff like that as well. So it's going to be, it's important that we work together and support one another in terms of these processes. Thank you very much. So I'll take the next round. Okay, Stephanie will be coming to you. Okay, I've got 1, 2, 3 for now. Now we're just looking at the road. We'll get to, not because the far left and this is the right, but yeah. So we'll get to you. Thank you very much. Sir.
Name is Joan.
Sorry, can you just a bit louder, please?
Yes, it's on. Okay, my name is Joan Kutu. I'm coming from Family VIP Bangane. I'm a visual impaired person. Let me go back to 2011, 15 years ago. I was working with IEC, with Council for the Blind. We were starting a program. I didn't hear any official, even you, Mr. Hendrikse, and Belinda talks about this. I was so amazed. Why? Because it's an engagement for persons with disability. Because this engagement is for us. There was a good program that we started, and it was a partnership, South African National for the Blind and IEC. We are introducing the new template, the one that is using now by visually impaired people. It was a good program when it started, but IEC, I think, should continue support that program continuously, day in, day out, to train visually impaired people, give them the trainings, the information about that template, because some of the staff members from IEC doesn't understand, even doesn't know. I was fighting with the staff of IEC people there, end up the presiding officer intervened, because we are the part of the with IEC as National Council for the Blind to be independent for us person with visual impairment. But it seems what the problem is as well with your staff. So we need to work on that. And also you should continue in the programs like that to continue also to be independent. Thank you.
Next.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tabisa. I'm from the Western Cape Black Disability Forum. I just want to just to does the IEC by any chance have any persons with disabilities that are full-time employed? And a second question is a follow-up question on the first question that you posed from someone online with regards to proof of disability. I think that it will be very helpful to actually ask us applicants to attach such proof of disability in applying for special vote or applying for home visits, because I think you mentioned that the public tends to abuse that service, and then I think with that abuse, then people that really need it, then they don't get it, because there are people that just making it as a maybe as a joke or something like that. Because I know most people with disabilities, they do have proof of disability with them. It's one of the documents that are normally asked. So most of us we have it. So I think IEC should maybe then introduce such, so that when we apply, even if it's online, then we just attach that on the system. And then what was the last one? Oh, also for interest sake, do you by any chance have the stats of how many people with disabilities do actually vote on the days of elections? Do you have those numbers?
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hendrikse, I'm Sharon Goosen from Innovation for the Blind. I would just like to know if to see the National Council for the Blind Western Cape involved in the training of the staff members at the polling stations, because we've got a lot of challenges there in Worcester. I'm sure also in the Western Cape. So if we can be involved, I hope the money is good. And then we've got an accessible venue at Innovation for the Blind as well. So you can always, they can contact me and we can talk about that. Thanks.
Okay, there's one more there.
Good day, everyone. I'm Apiwe from Norutando School for the Deaf. I'm part of the school management team there. Just a comment about your outreach. You mentioned that you have an outreach whereby there's campaigns that you do at the schools. I'm very much more interested in that because I've been working at the school for like 5 years or now, and we've never had any engagement with the IEC regarding our learners that we have, because we want to teach independence into our learners. So we would love to have those sessions, those educational sessions where you come and pop in just to visit, so that the learners know what is going on all around. Yeah, and also I was just interested also on the matter of your reflection after the elections. I was also interested in the data in terms of how many people do register and make it to the voting stations. I have in mind our neurodivergent learners, that it must be very frustrating for them to go to these voting stations. There's so much sound, there's so much light that is like affecting them in a way. So I was just interested in terms of that. And also, yeah, I wanted to know how to apply, if you must apply to be part of the outreach, because we'd really like to be part of that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Yeah. So with regard to the partnership, I think I think the partnership with the Council for the Blind has come on for a long time. Even the design of our Braille template, we work with that, and IC soft training. Look, that is one of the critical things that we've identified as a shortfall, and we in our training manuals when we do the training of our voting staff. How do you assist the disabled? How do you Just because I'm disabled, don't shout at me. You know, just because it doesn't mean now I'm deaf as well. Why do you shout? Why do you treat somebody like a kid? Just because you know, it's those, and that is the most difficult part. You know, it's easy to train somebody on a process, but to change attitudes is very difficult. IEC, I think it may be an experience of the sector in terms of, you know, engaging in society sometimes as well. So we look at that and yes, for sure. And by the way, also there's another way in which you can get involved with us. You just before the elections, your organization can apply to be an election observer. Okay, it doesn't mean that you work in this thing, but you can then visit stations. You went any voting station because you'll be accredited by your organization will be accredited, and you'll have a sort of a thing that says I'm an observer for this organization, which means that you can actually be there, and then you can know what is going on. Because a lot of times, guys, to be fair, also we just hear stories, and it's very difficult. But if you can say, Michael, at that voting station in, you know, that school or whatever, this was the problem. Or at that voting station, it is a school, but we had to use the upstairs classroom, for example. You know what I mean? So can I please also invite you to apply to be accredited, your organization, not you as an individual, but your organization gets accreditation, and the organization then allows their members to go, and then after the election you can give us a feedback and say this was our experience. Because to be fair, you know, making a general comment is easy, but you can't pinpoint sometimes the problem, because one voting station they're doing well, in the other one not so well. So that will also help us, and specifically then to the gentleman at the back, help us so that we can. The training, that's another matter. Because we do training across the province, and people need to be there at a particular time and space. It's something that we can look at too, but it will mean that you guys will have to make people available to be there during our training sessions, because they do it across the province at particular times. But it will not be. It's not a bad idea as well. In fact, we are now doing a session called lead trainer boot camps, and maybe where's Belinda and the other team, we can maybe ask the regional supervisors to invite somebody from the disability sector at that level, you know, where we're training the trainers, not necessarily the people on the ground yet, but if your trainers understand, then when they're going out, no. So again, please people, we need to make sure that you're there, and also let us understand the area of your operations, if you know what I mean. Because there's no use me inviting you, but you say, no, but I'm not in that space or whatever. So let us also take something up like that. So I commit that we will engage with our regional supervisors and then see whether we can invite, maybe not each one of you, but maybe a representative from the sector. That can also, and let's see how it goes, because we're going to train now for registration, and then we're going to later on in the year do training for elections. So we use this maybe as a trial run to see how it lands and how does it work. Okay, then yeah, we can work with that. The Black Disability Forum, you have persons with disability working for the IEC. If you're talking about permanent, we do. And then, as I said, during the last election, we unfortunately only had 15 electoral staff who self-identified. Remember, we ask you to identify yourself. We don't tick the boxes. You have to identify. So that is definitely something that we must improve on. And I say that not because I want to comply, but really, and that's why I'm honest with you. We only had 15 out of the 18,000. Really, you know. Then the proof of disability, it's a difficult thing because we don't add a barrier. I'm so used to having a thingy key and I'm walking around. The proof is something that we thought of because of the abuse, but then you add a barrier almost to somebody now, because you must now also scan something in addition. So we don't know yet what if there's a proper assessment of the disabled persons and how many of them actually have proof. Because some people don't necessarily have it with them. And now you say, but show me your proof, or scan a document over and above you just applying and sending us so that is something. But we, as the IEC, we're very wary of adding to the burden of especially the more vulnerable, poorer communities, where you need to now say, let's give us now plus this or plus that. Yeah. But it is something that we have to consider, but we have to balance that out. And we don't have stats of disabled persons that vote. We don't record that. Remember, everybody comes in and you cast your ballot. We don't have any. If there are any stats, that will be done by survey companies who go out and survey people to find out. But as an IEC, we don't record your status when we do. Okay, sorry.
I mean, one of the reasons that we don't record that is because at the moment when you register or a person registers, the issue of self-identification is not part of that. And if the sector feels that that's important, and it is something that is in the kind of international discussion, then I think the sector needs to convene in the different organizations, whichever, however they are arranged, to begin to articulate that, because it's not something that will happen, just like that. We have to make sure that the registration programs, the registration education material, and so on really speaks to that. I think the second thing also is just to say that the issue about the self-identification, when it becomes something that is an issue of proof, in many instances, particularly in relation to psychosocial challenges, that is where the barrier or the reluctance to self-identify is strongest, because there is still a much higher level of stigma. And so I think that that's where the whole burden issue would come in. And so that's where, I think what we're saying is, let's not add pressure, burden, if there are other ways to help people to deal with things. Thanks.
And then in terms of persons who will feel a high level of discomfort coming to the voting station, as I indicated, one, when you want to register, you can do it online in the safety and in the privacy of your home, or wherever you feel comfortable doing that. So you don't have to come to the voting station. Secondly, that is also for persons who can apply for a home visit. So instead of having to go to the station where the noise is and I can understand, look, there's a lot of noise at the voting stations, especially just outside. You've seen, it's sort of, they call it the festival of democracy, because it is. Some of our areas, it is. The music is going, the people are there, it's going that, and a lot of people love it. They love it. They want to be that part of the excitement. Other places, it's so quiet, you won't even know there's a voting station. But on a serious note, the person who feels uncomfortable of going to the station, either they can come and vote at the station before, early voting. In other words, it won't be so busy on May. Alternatively, they can apply for the home visit, and then they can vote in the privacy of their home. Nolotando School, are you? Where are you based, in Cape Town? Okay. You're a commissioner, wait now. So Ushi is there. I don't know, Ushi, if you have any details, but we will definitely reach out to you. Again, it's one of those when if we don't know, we can't come. And yes, but we'll definitely will put you on the list. Ushi's at the back there, and she's our regional coordinator in the metro. So if your details are here, we will definitely reach out in terms of it. Yeah. Thank you. Is it? Yeah. Okay, we move to the next row. Thank you.
Hi. Hi, afternoon everyone. I'm Anthony, chairperson of the Western Cape Network on Disability and general manager of the Quad Para Association Western Cape. I'll try and keep it brief. Going towards the end is an advantage because you can comment. One of the things, observer status. With respect, by the time that an observer observes that a polling station is not accessible, it's too late. You guys need to be proactive and you need to get people in there before polling day to ensure that stations are accessible. Because if you only do it afterwards, then the discrimination has already taken place. So please make sure that you get people there in advance to ensure that the polling booths are accessible to all in advance, ahead of time. Don't wait to get the complaint. Let's be proactive. When it comes to employment, I would be embarrassed to stand up in front of a group and say that only 50 people out of, 18,000 were people with disabilities, whether people disclosed or not. And I really think that you guys need to have a concerted effort to recruit people with disabilities. I don't know how you can try and represent a group that you don't employ. If it's not representative in your workspace, if the workplace isn't representative, you're never going to represent us. So please, not 2%, 7%. We've got people, we'll help you find the right people. The proof of evidence of a disability, you say it adds a barrier. I say that it actually is not as big a barrier as the barrier of the IEC staff not being able to get your home to do a home visit because they aren't available, because the system's been abused. So put that little barrier, put that speed bump in place with pleasure. At least then you'll have more availability and the abuse will stop. It's a minor barrier for us to overcome. And as our colleague said, we have proof, we have evidence of our disability. Then just a couple of questions. Personal assistance. It's all very well providing a special vote for the person with a disability. But what about the people that work with that person with a disability? Person with a disability, perhaps for 3 hours while the person goes and stands in the queue. Disability. We need to accommodate them, and they need to be able to vote on the same day at the same time with the person that they provide assistance to. Then some questions from who weren't able to be here today. One of the questions has been alluded to, but I think it's a very important aspect. And the one is your website. Has it ever undergone an access audit? It is probably these days as important as judging the act of the polling station itself. You keep telling us that we must go online. How many of us can actually make use of the website? Again, we've been excluded by technology. For me, an inaccessible is as discriminating, as big a barrier as a polling station that has a step to get into it. Or it's doing an access audit on your website. All right, we get in there. And then a question, again, I think our folk from Cape Mental Health referred to this. I'm going to read it. It says, what special accommodation will the IEC put into place for adults with intellectual disabilities to vote? As it currently stands, there is not special vote standard for adults with intellectual disabilities. And how have they accommodated, how have you guys your awareness training for with ID? And I think it's all very well to say, you view disability as a whole, but the reality is that disability is very large. And what I need to, my special needs, is not to get to the polling station. You need to have categories, and you need to make sure that ability is adequately accommodated.
Like this. Mr. Michael Hendricks, good. My name is Rian Hoffman. I'm from North Tivet College. Maybe earlier you mentioned about that, the IEC has 72 permanent staff members. I would like to propose unto you and the leadership for consideration that you have access to Tivet colleges, UOTs, University of Technologies, and also universities, basically. Having said that, they have student placement, officials on campuses, basically. And we are, have to facilitate the placement of student placements. But there's various qualifications, relevant, they have to be placed in that discipline as such. Okay. I wish to suggest to you for consideration again that, the TVET colleges has to apply for discretionary grants in the various CETAs, which is subjected to approval. Upon approval, they would be able to place the students with the IEC as such, where that is concerned. Additionally to that, also basically various TVET colleges TVET colleges have disability management units. We're also required, that would be referring to the, the UOTs and the universities, but in this case would be the TVETs. We are required also to place those disabled students as such with host employers within the mainstream of the economy. Furthermore, also host employers, basically the macroeconomy, they also ask of us specifically for disabled, students as such. So I'm putting to you a proposal for consideration that, you've got access to the higher education institutions, that potentially would be able to assist with your efficiency or maybe your staffing challenge you're having where that's concerned. Number two for me is for consideration, it was mentioned, that the online voting could be a challenge as such. My understanding, my logic tells me it's not possible. I've listened to the House at large today. There's really if you navigate and find a way, you will really see there's really an outcry for that to happen. Now, respectfully, I wish to suggest, maybe ask, should the IAC says no, or the politician says no, or the government says no, my question today is basically, what informs your decision basically to arrive at a no? For me, suggestion would be is maybe whereby the IAC leadership could potentially consider maybe, a survey, I think a national survey to South Africans, asking them that, listen here, we provide for the, able-bodied, individuals and the different able bodies. Then basically they can indicate their preference, whereby they could decide for themselves, their preference of voting. I also, in closing, just a statement, I think South Africa is ready. Earlier you mentioned about your mother, is 80 plus. 94, sir, I was 18. And I think South Africa has progressively progressed since then up to today. So in my unqualified view, I think the country is really ready, but maybe to support my statement, I wish to suggest to the leadership to consider that we get data behind that suggestion, whereby there's a survey. And I went on your website. As a commendation, I do think the IEC is very progressive. Your website, speaks to, and we've been advocating the aspect of, recruiting, potential candidates amongst the House at large today. But as a commendation, as a compliment, I do think based on your website, your navigation, that, the recruitment elements there, you are very progressive. And I'm sure if you could date back to 94, where you are then and now, I think it's like day and night. Yeah. So from me to you, thank you for the progress you've made thus far. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Erin from the Western Cape Association of Full Persons with Disabilities and also representing the Western Cape Network on Disability. My comment is really, I'm holding it at the top. In terms of accessibility of the specifically of people with a hearing impairment who don't use sign language. The speaker and the sign language interpreter have been backlit all this whole morning. And even on the YouTube stream, it's very difficult to see your faces. So for anybody wishing to lip read, it's extremely difficult. It goes also into the polling stations. There are communication hints and tips that we can give when communicating with someone that has a hearing impairment. So as not Sandra, Sharon. As Sharon said earlier, we will quite happily help you and provide that kind of information specifically. As Anthony said, disability is diverse. Sign language is brilliant, but it's not used by everybody. So I would encourage the IEC to look at alternatives as well.
Good morning, afternoon, everybody. I'm Elizabeth, PK from DPSA. I just want to know, firstly, I want to say that I agree with Johan that spoke in the first session about in the first round of comments. They spoke about since 2011 when we started the engagement with IEC. I personally have worked under Ushi. I was a democracy education facilitator, and it is nice. I agree with you to work for the IEC. However, the application process now is different to what it was that time, because that time it was manually done. Now, the that process is not very accessible for people with blindness like I am and visual impairment. It's not very accessible because I've tried already numerous times. And then also I want to agree with Sharon and with Anthony and all the others that said at the polling stations on the day that the staff there, they need to be trained even more, because you cannot walk in there with a white cane and then somebody wants to assist you, or you ask for assistance and then that person lifts up your hand that you're actually using a white cane, because remember that white cane is our eyes. We cannot walk without putting that cane on the ground to know where we are walking. Then you walk into the polling station and that presiding officer or that person, yes, he speaks to you or she speaks to you, but he, I don't know why, up your hand and pulls you forward. That process has to seriously be stopped. And then my other comment, I forgot. Sorry, yeah, but that was oh yes. The other comment was for those who are not techno savvy, what processes does IC have in place for those that wants to have or that requests home voting registrations and visits to accommodate them to do their voting? Because I have quite a couple of people that I know that is not techno savvy and they can't easily get to the polling station either. So what process does IC have in place for those ones to actually have home visits? Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is Bongani Yamba from Cape Town APD. I'm covered with in many aspects, as my colleague have already raised many issues that I would have alluded to. One, I think I just want to emphasize what has been proposed, that as a top up in terms of the training of the staff, I'm aware the training is very intense with those 5 modules online. I'm aware of those modules, and I think they do the job. But I think there's a top up now for the sake of the disability sector. It's very important to have the disability sensitization. And the last thing, to kind of reiterating from what Ms. Belinda was saying, and I think she was correct to say the buildings that we are using as our voting stations do not belong to IEC. So, but in the end, when it comes to the reasonable accommodation is expensive. In fact, it's an intentional adjustment of things. So meaning that the IEC needs to budget for if IEC is serious with disabilities, we need to budget for that reasonable accommodation, because at least we do have those movable ramps, either be the wood ones or those that are metal. So you can budget for those ones, because it's a reality that of course the schools and churches that we are using are not ours. So, but at least you can do the little bit that you can do to make sure that people with disabilities are accommodated. That includes even those that are visually impaired. You need to budget for that. Thank you very much.
Good day, everyone. My name is Marco Dunstan. I'm from the Overstrand area. I'm from Overstrand Association People with Disabilities in the Overstrand, but I'm also a member of the Disability Forum under the watchful eye of Department Social Development, which was structured to cater for the needs and for people who are living with disabilities. So I hear a lot of things, what I wanted to ask, what I wanted to say, but I want to make a suggestion, and I also want to applaud our employee from the IEC in the Overberg, Museri, for always interact with various organizations in the Overstrand, partnering with the sectors, and also engaging with us underground as people. But my suggestion is, I hear a lot of things here. For me, as a visual impaired person, it's very difficult to don't how can I put it, have any training whatsoever in a local area like Houston, Hermanus area, who don't go to school at a visual impaired school and all of that, but has to learn for over the 10 years I'm visually impaired, how to cater, how to go to workshops, trainings, and all of that stuff. So where I am now as a peer supporter, be under OAPD in the Overstrand. So what I understand here is, we as disabled people in our various communities, we are the best people and employees to cater and to know our people coming to the voting stations. There is no argument about it. We as people with disabilities know our people. We know who's anti this. We know who's this. We know who's that. And we know, and we are trained as peer supporters in our districts, in our communities, working with them. We know how to treat a quadriplegic, a paraplegic, a hemiplegic, how to understand an intellectual person. Because various challenges has in SASA, where they said they don't know the person has a disability. But you, working as a community worker in your community, you knows exactly who got what disability. So that is something to work on, and I know, and I'm hopeful that we as employment and as exclusiveness in the working environment, that the institute will look into that to employ as much as disabled people in our voting stations. Thank you.
Azay. No, thank you very much. And thanks again for those comments and incisive comments. I think it's things that we also as the IEC must hear from you. So in terms of the issues on web access, I already indicated that is something we'll have to take up because again, the suggestion of doing a access audit is something that we definitely will take up because, you simply, it's easy to simply say, yeah, but there's a website. It's, and then assume everybody can navigate on that website equally, etc., or that you must go on an e-recruit system and then you struggle to access that. In terms of our e-recruit system, our local offices are always available to assist persons who come there. I know it's not the perfect solution, but our local offices are available to assist someone to navigate on that e-recruit system, for example, when we are there. And yes, it's not only the suggestion about the observers. It's not that we already do that survey of accessibility of our voting stations when we are at the contracting stage. So it's not that, all I'm saying, it's almost like an additional measure. So I'm not saying that we don't do any assessment. We do it. In fact, it's one of the requirements when we do our voting station determination. What are the facilities which are available? And again, it's not always, and as the gentleman said, a lot of our state buildings are not really accessible. So we need to work on that. And your suggestion around how do we overcome some of it? Because again, how do I make sure that we cover the range of disabilities? You guys have mentioned about the range of disabilities in the sense that, yes, I can, if we budget for the ramp, I hear you. But on the other hand, what about the other disabilities? So it's not almost like we need to look at a bigger holistic response to that, and how we take and the suggestions that we have here. And obviously, my team is here so that we can actually engage with you year after in your specific area of disability, where you'll say, "This is what you can do. How can we do?" Because it's not a one size fits all in terms of our response that we must get to you. But you are correct in highlighting that. And yes, it is embarrassing for me to stand here, sir, and say only 15 people have been. It is embarrassing. But it should be a shared responsibility in the sense of saying, how can you help us also overcome it? Because yes, it's our responsibility. I don't deny that. But we need to be able to also say, how do you help us to improve on the situation around the employment of persons from a disability sector? And that is clearly something that we want to do. And that's why I did say that. I mean, that we only have 15. So it's not acceptable, not at all. And in fact, it's a societal trend around the employment of disabled persons, and not only within the IEC, but a lot of state institutions. But it is something that we have to acknowledge, and that's why I stand and I say that the persons with providing assistance, I agree 100% that if you are a disabled person, and you're coming with your assistant, or it's a peer support person, you should be voting at this, immediately after, or as the case may be, and not be told, no, you must go back and come back separately. I agree 100% with you, and we will definitely be, at least in this province, be making sure that is implemented. But my commission is also here, but it literally just makes sense. And I think a lot of times it does happen, but we need to institutionalize it so that it happens at our voting stations, not because a particular presiding officer said this is a good idea. But thank you again for highlighting that. And yes, as I said, I noticed I take note also of the categories of disability and how do we have to respond to these particular matters. The Northlink, yes, we have a lot of engagement with Northlink, with the different campuses, and thank you for that. And also with regard to the engagement, we try our best when we send out our adverts, etc., to all our stakeholders, including the universities and TVETs, when we say we are now recruiting. And unfortunately, the response is not always very good. But by all means, we remain open to working with the TVETs around that. With the online voting, I think you mustn't misinterpret what our commissioner was talking about. It's saying for this next election, we definitely won't have it because we can't implement it overnight. The IEC has gone through a national process of looking at international research. The HSRC has compiled a report. we've done the surveys, we've done region in this province, we've done regional sessions as well. And online voting is not so straightforward as simply switching on your laptop. There's issues of audit trails, there's issues of voter secrecy, there's issues of access, because who will be the ones who has the data to work on that? So there's a number of those things. So we have not closed the door on electronic voting in any of the forms. Remember, there's a number of different ways we can do electronic voting. It's not just about online. There's a number of ways we can do that. So as the IC, we have not closed the door, but we are in the process of finalizing a comprehensive report on the matter that we will be submitting to our oversight bodies as well. So we have definitely not closing anything. Please just note that. I apologize again. Thank you for highlighting my issues around how we prepare for this workshop, the backlighting, etc. And yes, the issue of sign language is something that we need to take into account. I think, and if you allow, it's the same happens with Braille. Not every person that is visually impaired can Braille. So it's not like the solution. And I hear what you're saying. It's not one solution. And then we sit back and say, we've got a sign language person here. It's multiple ways to engage. And that is why we need to get this from you. I really didn't know that my head is not looking good. But on a serious thing, it doesn't come to me. That is why it's so important for us to engage with you, because we don't see it. That is our reality. That's our blind spots. But thank you for highlighting that particular issue and the issue of things. Again, we'll have to look at the online processes, the accessibility of our online processes, and how do we make sure that. And I think from what is it Anthony? May I call you Anthony? Highlighted the issue of us having to review our website and see how it is. In fact, I think sometimes my website is, even for me, sometimes how do you get there? It's just too complicated. But anyway, be that as it may, we need to literally look at, and that's definitely something that I will be asking our CIO to look at and say, how do we make sure it is? And in that process, engage with our role players. Because again, it's not about me sitting there thinking, okay, now it should be okay. No, it can't be. So let us engage and have this open two-way street, so that we can ensure that we engage with all our stakeholders. I did speak about the ramps. I know we at one stage we had a discussion. You will know that department, I think it's the Provincial Department of Social Development, has a disabilities unit, and their responsibility is to work with Public Works around accessibility of all state buildings. And they have to have a audit of what is available. And again, it's unfortunate that when we go to a school, and remember, we can't just tell the school we want you. We have to actually apply. We have to have a contract. I don't know why, because it is a state building. It's a community, and then sometimes we get told, no, you can only use that building. And I say, but no, why do you make it so difficult? Or there's stairs. And literally sometimes it's the only place. But then we must see how we best can accommodate our persons with a various disability, not only in terms of mobility, but again, it's a bigger review of what we're doing. And I'd like to have a process, and where's Malusi? We're going to look at this, and I'm going to get a feedback from the regions around how we've engaged with you and what feedback we're receiving from you when we actually go out to you. Please engage with us, so that, by the way, Stephanie's also here from Houston. She's the one for the Winelands people. I know the innovation, but so we definitely going to have, and I really want to have a follow up, but I don't know, and I don't know how the format will be, because the follow up that I must have with all of you must be almost more like a working session. Not just we're talking, but how best do we have a working session, so that we look at the practical ways, and you're not asking me a question, I'm giving you generalized answers from here and whatever promises. So we'll have to look at how our next engagement is more of a working type session with groups and whatever. I don't know, but we'll have to work something out in terms of that. I'll be with you now. Yeah, so it comes with regard to in regard to that, and I note also the issue of peer support. The gentleman there, just like a persons give assistance, you bring somebody, you have also the peer support persons, and how we best accommodate that process for those who also come to the stations. Okay, dokie. Oh yes, sorry. So yes, in terms of one, you can have someone can have the request for a special vote delivered at the office, or can be assisted. What we also do is we typically would go to you as in the organization can also assist that person to apply for a special vote. As well. So you can do it on behalf of somebody as long as you indicate who you are, and we know that you are applying for that particular individual. And if there are sort of institutions where people are at, where it's at a place of safety or we can always visit those institutions as well as a standard. We do that, for example, with old age homes, where we come already to an institution where a number of persons are staying as well. But those are the ones where it's literally a physical process, unfortunately, that we have to engage with you. I'm going to have one more round. So, how are we doing?
Hi there. Yes, it's Barbara May here again from Cape Mental Health. I just wanted to ask about, there's a particular issue that has always been a challenge for persons with a psychosocial disability. It is who is not allowed to vote, who is not allowed to be registered to vote. So in the 1988 South African Election Act, it states that people who can't register, okay, there's a couple of ones, you can't register fraudulently, you need to be a South African citizen, but then there's also has been declared by the High Court to be of unsound mind or state. And then also it is under the Mental Health Care Act of 1973 that they've been detained under the Mental Health Care Act of 1973. So that is an old election act of 1988 about registration. Now the thing is that that actually the Mental Health Care Act of 1973 was actually made null and void because there's a new Mental Health Care Act of 2002 that is now about emphasizes patients' rights and promoting integration and accessibility. But the act of who cannot register, that act is still there. It hasn't been taken away. So that is an issue for persons with a psychosocial or psychiatric disability. So that's the one thing that needs to be looked at. And then the other thing was persons with intellectual disability. So we work with persons with both intellectual disability and psychosocial disability. And the persons we did, like before the 2024 elections, we found out like who was registered, who wasn't registered, and things like that. There were very few persons with intellectual disability that were registered. And that is because they found it very difficult to register at that point. And they knew who they wanted to vote for, but, like the other sort of complicated information, how to be able to look at even those voter forms there, like with hundreds and hundreds of faces, it was very difficult for them to be able to navigate. So that was sort of the off-putting thing for persons with intellectual disabilities to be able to register. So they needed more support with that. And like Braille and like different tools that we have, we also have easy to read, which actually assists persons that have very low literacy or have intellectual disability. You can use things like that to assist them to be able to register, but as well. And then also one issue that also happened is that there needs to be more training on the ground. Now, just by chance, I did my sort of citizenship thing, and I twice was an official for voting days in my lifetime. And it's a really hard, longest day of my life kind of job that happened on those days. I'm sure you all agree. The thing is that I did not receive any training to be able to assist persons with disability at that point. So, you know, and while it was sort of left up to the individual whether you were going to be compassionate or not, but the experiences that we've had from our persons with intellectual disability is that when they went to go and vote, they were actually laughed at by officials when they said that they can't read and write, because they were laughed at because they were said, oh, you're a grown man and you can't read or write. And the person wanted to bring their mother to help them look at the things, and then they were laughed at during that time. And the person left humiliated and said that they will never go back again because, you know, of that lack of compassion. And I know you did say, you know, you can't it's that individual thing. But since I have been an official standing there, I can say that I did not receive any training. I was just there and they just told me, you dot this, you cross this, you check the line and things like that. So I just wanted to add that. The two main points, psychiatric and the right to be able to vote, that law of 1988, I read up a lot on it. That specific part has not been changed, and it still pertains to that old law of 1973, even though the new Mental Health Act is from 2002, and it should actually reference to that one, which is way more inclusive. And then the other thing of people with ID are not registered, and they feel very uncomfortable and embarrassed to say aloud that they can't read. Okay, that's me.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tseko Tlo, and then from League of Friends of the Blind. So from my side, I have a pushback statement and a solution at the same time. My pushback statement, it is against the statement that come from IEC, where each year they tell us that your vote is a secret and we vote in privacy. However, that does not apply specifically for people who are blind, who cannot read Braille, and including people who are not able to use their hands. So I would plead with IEC to say that your vote is your secret, you vote in privacy, except us who can read Braille, including those who are not able to use their hands. Because you are including us in words, but actually excluding us, discriminating against us in action. And with that, it would not be fair for IEC every year, every voting season, we get told the very same thing over and over, but with no solution. We have recommended and suggested solutions for the past 15 years, but even till today, no action whatsoever. So now, solution this time. The solution to the problems I've mentioned can be 1, a screen reader, 2, voice activation that will be highly encrypted, that nobody can actually breach it. Such is possible. People have been to the moon in 1960. What's wrong with us?
Michael?
Yes.
Eh,
Sorry, we are able to.
you want more?
Giving the same people over and over again.
Uh, Okay, my first question is the process that you use as IEC for demarcation when you do demarcation, what kind of process do you use? Because in Kailicha, my ward will be extended, and the budget allocation doesn't meet the requirements of residents there. So I'm very concerned. I think in Maumela, in Limpopo, they did a toy against that, and it was blocked. We don't want to result into that. So there was an issue of youth that they don't register. You use an idea of your universities, where you go to universities and use students for registration, and that the idea worked very well. So I'm appealing to you to as well result, because 16-year-old they are in high schools. That Department of Education have that discussion around that. So we have identified the gaps regarding access and empowerment and restoring dignity of persons with disabilities in this session. Ours now is to come up with a date that we invite all disability sectors and attach these solutions that are spoken here, so that we can address these barriers and challenges. In most of the engagements that government and other institutions, the part that they mostly leave is to make a meaningful follow-ups, so that we can achieve these important visions. So the decision. So there's no need of making follow-ups with emails that they don't have dates for follow-up, so that we can attach these solutions that are given here. And also, the decision makers are here, the commissioner is here, and also Mr. Hendricks is here. We can make that decision here, right in this room. Thank you very much.
Yes, Maureen.
Good day, everyone. I'm Samantha Khan from DPSA Delft branch. Most of my questions were answered. See that I was the last one. Waited the whole day. But I first want to ask a question and then make a statement. You have a planning committee, right, sir, for the IEC? Do you have a planning committee for the IEC before this whole process starts? Is there a planning committee that comes together and says, okay, this is the new voting season, let's plan this? Or do you have a planning committee specifically?
There's a planning process in place involving our different levels, but also at the provincial level, yes?
Okay. How many of those members are disabled? How many of those members, please?
It will, no, yeah, look, as I indicated earlier on, there are persons with disability working for the IEC, all right? And
Not what I asked. I'm asking how many of the committee is disabled. There's a reason for that question. Answer me, please.
Can I just tell you, there is not one particular committee, so it's a process. So what happens is, I can only speak for our province. It's a provincial process that we follow, with involving the provincial members of the IECs, our staff, and there are disabled persons on our staff complement. Because there's not like a committee that sits me and one person. So it's a process that we have.
Okay, working for the IEC. My question is, the person, now my question is this, you go to an event or you go to a venue, okay, you choose this school and say, okay, the school is fine for a disabled person. But if there's not a disabled person that goes with you to the venue, how can you say for the disabled person if there's not somebody with a wheelchair there? You can't tell me that can't walk alone up by stairs, that a school with stairs is enough. For, I must go vote there. And then the other thing is this, and I'm going to agree with that lady in the corner over there near to the exit. There is no training for IEC officials because I know of 2 events. I'm just going to mention one. A lady came to the voting station and she has epilepsy. And when she said she had epilepsy, they said, I'm first going to say it in Afrikaans because this is how the official spoke. Moenie kanse vat nie. Has niks met jou verkeerd nie. Don't take chances, there's nothing wrong with you. The only time they jumped was when she fainted and she got a seizure. A seizure. That's the only time they jumped. And then the other thing is this. Special votes, it's important. I know there's a lot of disabled people because I was one of them until a few years back that doesn't really want to be labeled as disabled, but it's important because there's a lot of people. Special votes is a need for us. I'm going to use me as an example. I have a problem walking far distances. So special needs for me is important. But then you get people that use special votes, and I'm not discriminating, and please forgive me if it sounds like this. You can walk long distances, but because just you don't want to, you register for special vote. And then there's somebody that can't even move out of his bed that's excited to vote, but he can't because the special vote fell through the cracks. So I think it's important to look at something. You don't have to label me as a cerebral palsy. You don't have to label me as a paraplegic, but put something in the system so that other people cannot misuse my special need, because that is a misuse. Because that person got a special vote, now somebody that really needs it doesn't get, or he falls through the cracks. I know of somebody that was very excited. She was very excited to vote, but number one, she didn't have a wheelchair. Number two, we struggled with the system because it wasn't very easy to understand. It upgraded a little since then. But eventually, she missed 2 votes and eventually she just gave up. That's how difficult it is. That is how frustrating it is. So it's important. Nothing about us without us. Nothing about us without us. You cannot say, and what's going to happen with this? I agree with that, gentleman. What's going to happen with all this information? How are you going to implement it? Before voting, before registration. It's nice to have all this information. You make a database, you make your captions, you put in your information, you make document 120 pages. And how that 100 pages go to ground level to suit me or to help me as a disabled person? How does that 120 or 2,000 pages, because some of your documents are 2,000 pages long, how does that 2,000 pages go to the ground level to help me with a disabled? That is my question.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much again. So let me just see the issue of the persons being declared by the High Court to be of unsound mind. That is actually found in the Constitution when it talks about who can be a public representative, and it flows from that. So that is where that flows from. So it's in the Constitution. And not specifically linked to our IEC legislation only. So it specifically creates the requirement that it has to be the High Court. So obviously there's a process linked to it. It's not anybody simply standing up and saying that you are of unsound mind.
So aside, in addition to that, the thing to remember is that in terms of the processes of interpretation of legislation, if an act has been amended and replaced by another act, the act is referred to in other legislation takes account of the new legislation, not of the old legislation. So I just wanted to, in addition to what Michael has said, just reassure it's something you can reassure the community of.
Thank you, Commissioner. Then, where am I now? Declared. The easy to read manuals, and I think it latches onto to what the last speaker spoke about also, about how do we make sure that the documents of the IEC are easy to read for persons from the disability sector. And I think there was also a proposal for members from that sector to assist us in terms of ensuring that our manuals and documents are in fact easy to read and not voluminous and things that are so difficult to understand as well. And again, that is something that we have to take place, because this is and to the extent that we can implement here, we will be implementing. On other matters, we will have to make sure that at a national level this is engaged, because we need to make sure that in terms of the solutions that are coming here, it's applied across the board as well. And it's, thank you. I mean, these are things when somebody is being laughed at, that is just completely unacceptable. Where somebody's disability is made fun of, it is completely unacceptable. And all I can from my side firstly say, I'm sorry that it actually happened to those voters, but secondly also, where it happens, let us, if you can, let us know, so that we can actually engage at that particular voting station, because a person that is doing that shouldn't be working for the IEC, really. But I can only act if you so I know it's difficult, but when you can identify a particular incident that has happened, let us know and say it happened at that school on that day. If you don't know the person's name, we'll find out who the person is. But please let us know, because that is abhorrent, really. Whether you are trained or not is irrelevant. That is just disrespectful. It's not about training. All right. So please, if it does happen, and it shouldn't be happening, and it's not just about a training thing. And I've spoken about how we want to try and deal with the issue of training, and start with our trainers, so that they can start imparting the way in which we must respond to persons with a disability. I agree 100%. The issue when it comes to persons with a visual impairment, even with those who cannot read and write, yes, the right to a secret ballot is impaired. But it's a limitation on that right, which it is tried to overcome. But that is the reality that we need to face. And as you said, there's issues around screen readers, voice activations. Those are critical matters that, as the IEC, we need to adopt nationally, not locally, because it's something that we need to engage on, taking into account where our people are situated as well, so that we can have a process where we start looking and saying, it's not just, okay, you must bring somebody with you, because that's the standard response. Bring somebody with you. And really, it's something that we as the IEC need to seriously consider, so that we can implement this nationally as well. Issues on the demarcations, unfortunately, that process is managed by the demarcation board. That process has allocated. And again, in terms of the budget allocation from the city side, that again is something which is taken up with the city through the ward councillor around how the budget, and it comes up during the integrated development plan discussions, how these are done. And again, so I cannot comment too much with regard to your ward situation and the allocation of funds, because that is literally something which is outside of our hands. I hear what you're saying in terms of that process. We do go to schools. We don't go to enough schools. I promise you, we probably can do a lot more schools if we could get across and have the resources to go to each and every school. Whether we need to now employ additional people like we're doing at universities to do a special project, that's something we'll have to consider, where you work on a temporary basis for the IEC and go to a school and in a particular area. But that is something we'll have to follow up on, whether it will actually flow from our universities, etc. So I've spoken about the issues of response and how to deal with some of these things, because really some of the answers I just cannot give you. You are coming up with a lot of good solutions, and I mean, I can say yes, yes, and leave you, but I've already indicated that we need to re-engage on this. It's not going to be something that we're going to be able to solve overnight, but there must be certain practical things that we will be able to do. I spoke about the issue, and yes, it is incorrect. I must also tell you that when I spoke about people abusing it, I mentioned the fact that it is a risk. At the moment, we are making sure that everybody who applied, we go to their homes. The problem is it's getting later and later in the day. I hear you, and again, it's something that we'll have to consider, because from what I'm hearing from the houses, there are more people here in favor of having some form of identification so that you can minimize the abuse of that particular process. But again, it's something which, remember, if we're going to implement something like that, it's going to be a national thing. So it has to be at a national level where a decision like that is taken. And also taking inputs, because my colleagues in other provinces are similarly having engagements with the disability sector. So we have to see what comes out from those. But that is something to take into account. I mentioned the fact that we need to look at how we make sure that we have better ways to engage with our disability sector, especially around our documents and things, how to make sure that it's easy to read, easy to understand some of our issues, especially because as we're moving, we become more and more reliant on our digital world. How do we make sure that we don't just assume that the digital is easy and that's the end of the story? But we need to continuously engage on those particular ways. So in as much as I can promise you a lot of things, what I can do is to promise to re-engage with you, to have a better working session, to have literally come up with practical things on the ground that we can do within this province already. There's some bigger issues that need to be done at a national level, but surely we must be able to deal with those particular matters as well. In terms of the employment, all I can again ask is go on our website, encourage people to apply, help them to apply. If they can't, get in touch with the local office of the IEC to assist people to be able to lodge their applications online for the available positions, so that we can increase the number of persons with disability or working in the IEC. We need to just do that. And there must be different ways in which we can engage on those particular aspects as well. Is there anything else you want to add? Okay. So you okay? You want to wrap up? So this is where I am now. So in the sense that there's been a lot said here today, and not only said but enlightened. Really, some of them is things that we take for granted, and I fall in my fault in terms of that, where I take certain things for granted in terms of our engagement. But the next one is to say we're going to take these suggestions. We're going to make sure that we engage with you in terms of your areas of where the disability sector you're coming from, so that we can actually see how we can start dealing with it. As I said, the regions are represented, and at that level also there will be further engagement. We will have to continue with these engagements, not only at a provincial level, but we will be calling you back to have a work session so we can actually unpack how some of these can actually happen. And also so you can also understand some of the limitations we are working from. Some of the things we'd like to do, but we have limitations on. I'm not making excuses, it's an explanation. But from our side, this is really, I thank you for the opportunity to engage with us and for you to have that honest reflection with us. And I appreciate the fact that there's been a lot of honesty coming out here, and to acknowledge the fact that as the IEC, we definitely can do better and we must do better. In what ways? That is something that we have to ensure and explore, that how we do better in terms of going forward for our sessions. There's some critical things, and we definitely will be engaging with you. So when we engage, please make sure you're available also, so that we can take this matters forward. Do you want to? Are you done? Okay. I don't think the logo. Do you? Do you want? Okay, you can come. Can you ask the logo to come up?
So, when we started this, we spoke about the fact that we wanted this to be a consultation to hear you and to take account of what you're saying. And I think that you've had a commitment from the province that there'll be a follow-up. And I think through the province, as well as through myself, a follow-up on some of the suggestions that need to be cascaded throughout the organization and taken nationally. I think what we really are, again, repeating is that we see the idea of nothing about us without us as being the basis for a partnership. And that's what we're calling for. We are not claiming to represent this sector. We are not claiming to know the experience of everybody who is part of this sector. In fact, we are saying that many of the experiences are things that we don't know enough about. So our partnership with you is something we are saying we need. And because of that, we are saying to you, please join us, let us work together, let us make sure that we're able to improve, that we're able to learn also from you, and we're able to work together to build what we need to build. So thank you very much from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you very much, PO, Manager, for, I know that you guys are very busy, but you made sure that this session, this engagement actually does happen, and you cleared your calendars to make sure that it actually takes place in the manner that it has. And thank you very much as well to all that participated. But to formally conclude, can I invite Ms. Noluvo Plaki to deliver the vote of thanks for us? And yeah, Ms. Plaki.
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Commission, especially the province, we appreciate your presence, the Commissioner. You have blessed us with your wisdom, and we could not thank you more. As Malusi has said, this journey started in December with us. We had to plan this event with the Western Cape Disability Network. Anthony is sitting at the back. We had our WhatsApp group. We learned a lot. Yes, we will continue the partnership, and the experiences that have been shared today will continue. On behalf of the Commission, especially the outreach team and the management of the Western Cape, we appreciate your presence. It would not have been possible to organize the magnitude and the reach that you have given us in terms of access to the network without you holding our hand. We also acknowledge the manager and the PO for allowing us to engage with the sector. We also appreciate our regional IEC staff that assisted us to make sure that we do have representation of attendance, even though some could not be here because of distances, but they were able to connect via our social media platforms. We also had some network representatives that came far away from the Metro, the Cape Winelands, and the Overberg. We appreciate your presence. The NGOs that took their time today to be part of this engagement, we also appreciate you. And the Chapter 9s, we walk this journey as one of the Chapter 9's institutions. We appreciate your presence. And on behalf of the Provincial Electoral Officer, we thank you. And may this engagement continue. Have a blessed day.
Thank you very much. The session is now closed. We will proceed to lunch. I think it's at Maureen. Just at the dining hall. Thank you very much for everyone for being here. I'm hoping that during lunch, the conversation will continue. We've got our colleagues there, the regional outreach officers, so they will be coming to you, making themselves available for you to continue the engagement. Thank you very much.